All right, so we are the West Metro Young Adults, ages 18 to 39, a Catholic ministry providing outreach and events for young adults in the western suburbs. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're excited to have everyone here. So just so everyone is aware right now, we will be taking pictures and videos recording the event. If you have any objections to this being in our published material, please find Jason Towle. Jason, would you raise your hand? Right back there. Or a member of our core team. So core team members, would you raise your hand right now too so people know to find you? All right, so we got people scattered around the room here. So the last thing that I'm going to mention off before we introduce our speaker is that checks will be brought to, to your tables, and as indicated on the menu, will include a 20% gratuity. So finally, let's begin with prayer. So in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord Jesus. Sorry about that. We're going to start off tonight, folks. Lord Jesus, thank you for this wonderful evening of fellowship, prayer, and just fun. Please help us all just to learn something further about you and your love for us. Please help our speaker to be able to get his thoughts through just succinctly and just allow us to enjoy our evening. Please help us to just find further love and grace in you. And we pray this in your name, our Father, who art in heaven.
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. So for this evening we have Dr. John Burry, who is a devoted husband and father, a professor of psychology at the University of St. Thomas, creeping up here behind me, and an author of How to Love Your Wife, and his newest, When You're Ready to Leave Behind the Liars, Losers, and Lemons, 15 Keys to Finding Love for a Lifetime. So with that, here's Dr. John Burry.
Nice group. It's good to be here. Now, if you saw the title of the talk is What is Love? And are you good at it? So, I have a research program that I've been working on for about the last 8 to 10 years. And basically, if you were to allow me to measure 6 things about you, I can tell you how capable of love you are. So, that's where we're headed. So there's probably nothing in this, isn't that a little unnerving? But really, I can predict with about 75% accuracy how good a lover you are. It's scary. Okay, so, first thing we have to do is define what love is. There aren't a lot of things within this culture where there's more confusion than surrounding this idea of love. So what I'm going to propose is that love consists of 3 components. Think of it as an equilateral triangle. And that each side of this triangle should be of equal size. And each component, each of these 3 components of love are active. They should be growing. One of the beauties of this particular view of love is that at any point in time, I've been married for 42 years. My wife is the best thing that's ever happened to me. She is my best friend. I like to say that I love going to work every day, and I do. I absolutely love what I do. But the highlight of every day is going home to my wife. So, I can look at any point in time at our marriage, and I can see where we might be deficient. Which side of the triangle is a little anemic compared to the others. And what that tells me is where we need to work on our marriage. So, here are the 3 components. Number 1 is passion. Passion is certainly the romance, the attraction, the sexuality of love. That's part of it. It's a curiosity about your partner. It's an attentiveness to your partner. One of the things that is absolutely fascinating is that with married couples, as long as you keep the passion alive, you remain in love. And it doesn't matter whether you're newly married or whether you've been married for 5 years, 10 years, or 40 years. The best predictor of love in a marriage is passion. Now, I hate to tell you that I don't know how many married people there are here. A few. One of the things that happens with marriage is that it often leads to a decrease in passion. It doesn't have to, but it often does. Okay? So, I'm walking home from work one day, and I'm walking past a little place in St. Paul called Thomas Liquor. It's a little wine store. And this guy comes running out. I'm about half a block down the street. He comes running out and says, Dr. Burry, I haven't seen you in years. I come walking back. And it turns out, I teach a course on the psychology of marriage and family. It turns out that he had been in that class about 10 years before. And he actually met his wife in that class. And he said that we still take out the notes, and we check and see how we're doing. You guys pull out your notes?
We still have them.
Well, they're no good if you don't look at them.
Sorry.
And he said one of the things that we learned in that class is how important it is to keep the passion alive. And he said the first year of our marriage, what we started doing is 3 times a year, we have a rendezvous. My wife goes out, she'll be in a wine bar, she'll be in a coffee shop, she'll be in a patio bar, and I have to go in and pick her up. And he told me that the pickup lines are always, she'd never take the same lines twice. So I always have to be on my game. And I have convinced her that I would be a good person to go to dinner with. And he said, we've been doing this every year for the last 10 years, and she really threw me a curveball last year. He said she went to a place and didn't tell me where she was. So I had to find her first, and then pick her up. He said I was hot after her before we were ever married, and I don't want that to ever die. So it is possible. What ends up happening is we end up taking each other for granted. Same old, same old, same old. So if you take married couples, like my wife and I, that have been married for 40 years, and you have them do something unique together, something they've never done before, and you record what's going on in the brain lights up, just like a young couple that's doing something together for the first time. So last year, in May, in Pioneer Press, they had the top 25 patio bars in the Twin Cities. So I talked with my wife to see how many of them we could hit last season. I think we had hit 16. And then we decided we need to go back and visit some other ones. So there's a great quote about the person who is passionless. Well, I should tell you, my wife and I go to Duluth every summer, and last summer I forgot something in the hotel. I went up to get it. When I came back down, my wife was sitting on the lake shore, looking at the lake, and she pretended like she didn't know anything. Go figure. I pulled out my very best pickup lines. I mean, I've been out of this for a very, very long time. She would just sit there, she ignored everything. And I thought, what am I? So I finally said, you know, my wife died about 3 years ago, and I would just love to have somebody to talk to. She melted. We had a great dinner. Okay. True story, by the way. This quote is by Dorothy Sayers. If anybody's familiar with Dorothy Sayers' work. A passionless person is someone who believes in nothing, cares for nothing, seeks to know nothing, interferes with nothing, enjoys nothing, hates nothing, finds purpose in nothing, lives for nothing, and remains alive because there is nothing for which they're willing to die. A passionless person is not a good lover. Okay? So, for 16 years I coached high school basketball. And I got in a lot of trouble with parents very often for playing guys, young men, who didn't have as much talent, but they had passion. And you can guess which parents I had trouble with. Okay? Why would I play somebody who has passion but less talent? Because when you have passion, they make something happen. And that's the person that has passion. Okay? So, if you find, by the way, Dorothy Sayers here is talking about sloth. Sloth is a sin that believes in nothing, cares for nothing, seeks to know nothing, interferes with nothing, enjoys nothing, hates nothing, finds purpose in nothing. The opposite of sloth, one of those seven deadly sins, is passion. Okay, second one. Second component is commitment. Commitment is a key component of any serious love. It's the determination to continue even in the face of bad times. There's a man at the University of Minnesota by the name of William Doherty, a marriage expert, who has said that every marriage goes through seasons, and every marriage is going to go through winter in Minnesota. Every marriage does. And there are days, as you know, it's coming, there are days when you look out and you can't see anything alive. All the grass is covered, the leaves are gone, and everything looks dead. That's when you need that commitment. When I first moved here, I'm not originally from Minnesota, I'm from Iowa. There were some natives from Minnesota who thought it would be a good idea to take me hunting. So we went up north and headed into a woods to hunt. Now, to give you an idea of what kind of hunter I am, when I got home, I told my wife, "Dear, I didn't catch a thing." So, when I really did. So I got out of the car, I'm heading into the woods, and one of my friends said, "John, do you have a compass?" I said, "What would you need a compass for?" And they explained to me that it's not like Iowa. In Iowa, you head off into the cornfield, and if you get lost, eventually you just walk, and eventually you'll find your way out. The woods isn't like that you could actually get lost for the rest of your life, which might be short. So one of them gave me a compass. End of the day, it's maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock. Sun's starting to settle a little bit, and I thought, I got separated from everybody. I should probably head back towards the car. I knew where the car was, and I started walking that way. Didn't see anything that looked familiar. So I pulled out the compass. Where was the car?
Right behind you.
That way. That's what commitment is. It's that thing that tells us which way to go when things aren't very clear. When we can get disoriented. After 3 years of marriage, my wife, she was my best friend. Still the best thing that ever happened to me. We dated for 5.5 years. 3 years in our marriage, things had really, really, really gotten bad. So bad that we were seriously thinking about divorce. The commitment is the thing at that moment that says no. Now, I want to make a clarification here. Commitment is not, I will stay with you forever. Commitment is a commitment to we. It's two me's becoming a we. About 20 years ago in marriage and family literature, a term popped up. The term is, anybody read Plato's Republic? Okay, so you know things like, this is a chair, and this is a chair, and this is a chair, but they are only physical manifestations of the ideal of chairness. Okay? So, in the marriage and family literature, this term popped up. It's called we-ness. We-ness. Okay? It's two me's becoming a we. What it does is throws love on its head. Because what will create a we tonight, the rules might be all different tomorrow morning. And you begin to look at every decision you make in terms of how does this decision impact we rather than me. So last year, my wife was working late. I was heading home from a meeting. And there was something that my wife had wanted me to get done for the last couple of weeks. I hadn't been able to fit into my schedule. I'm driving home and I'm realizing St. Thomas is playing St. John's. I could go to the game and still make it home by the time my wife got home. Or I could go home and do that thing for Kathy. Which did I decide? Did I decide for me or we? That one I did right. I did we. Okay. So, if any of you are familiar with Alphonsus Liguori, you know Alphonsus, the Redemptorist, he wrote a beautiful little book called Uniformity with God's Will. And in this book, he says that perfect love is the union of two wills. That's commitment. Now, what he's talking about is the union of your will with God's will. The union of my will with God's will. That's perfect love. But it's also true in marriage. The goal for union between Kathy and me is not that I get her to agree with me. And it shouldn't be her trying to get me to agree with her. It's helping each of us have union with God's will. That's what we're after. Okay, so we have passion and we have commitment. Is anybody familiar with Fiddler on the Roof? Ah, yes. We have this old Jewish couple, Goldie and Tevye. And Tevye is saying to his wife, Goldie, one day, do you love me? And she's saying, I have lived with you for 20 years. I have made your bed. I have cleaned your house. I am committed to you. And he's saying, but do you love me? Do you love me? And there's this longing, there's desire for passion. And she said, I've raised your girls, I've milked your cows. What do you mean, do I love you? And she keeps going back to commitment. They have an empty love. Okay? So, I want to ask you, as I do this, I want to make the point that our love for God is the same way. This is what I'm talking about, these three components. It also defines a person's love for God. I don't know a single saint that's ever lived that didn't have passion. They are full of passion for God. They are committed to God. There's commitment there. They want nothing more than that their will be uniform with God's will. And if you've been walking with Christ very long, you know that this is a lifelong task. My hope is that 5 years from now, my will be closer to the Lord's will than it is now. And my hope is that both Kathy and I, both of our wills, will be closer to what God wills. So, the third component of love. Has anybody seen the movie Shall We Dance? There's a great little line in there. Or to put it another way, why is it that people get married? Because we need a witness to our lives. There's 1 billion people on the planet. What does any one life really mean? But in a marriage, we're promising to care about everything. The good things, the bad things, the terrible things, the mundane things, all of it, all the time, every day. You're saying your life will not go unnoticed because I will notice it. Your life will not go unwitnessed because I will be your witness. Is anybody familiar with the passage in the Old Testament that says, look at the grass? Can't remember where. Look at the grass. The wind passes over, blows it away, and nobody knows that it was ever there. That's us. Albert the Great said it so well. He said, you don't want to fall so in love with the journey that you lose sight of home. And it's nice if you can have someone in your life so that you will not go unnoticed, because they will notice. The third component. This one is intimacy. So, intimacy is a funny thing. So, we have, can I use psychospeak for a moment? We have this thing that predicts successful marriages. It's called the ratio of positive to negative exchanges. In other words, it's a nice to nasty ratio. How many nice things, how many nice exchanges do you have versus how many nasty exchanges? The word exchange is a little odd, but it covers everything. It covers a glance. Was that positive or negative? Really? You didn't catch the corner of my lip? Snarly? No? Let me try it again. Now you got it? Or maybe I need to be more explicit. Anybody do a good eye roll for me? A recent article suggested that the eye roll may be the most nasty exchange in all of marriage because it conveys contempt. So, 5-to-1 ratio. If you have 5 positive exchanges for every negative, you will have a happy marriage. 5-to-1. And we can predict that with almost 94% accuracy. And I think you are aware of the fact that about 50% of marriages end in divorce in this country. And of those marriages that remain intact, what percentage of them are happy? Not half. Too high. The estimates are somewhere around 30 to 35%. The studies vary a little bit. So, we have 50% divorce rate. And, by the way, Catholic families aren't doing great either. The divorce rate isn't quite that high, but the number of unhappy marriages is quite high. And all we have to do is be nice to each other. Okay? So, one of my sons got married his college sweetheart from St. Thomas. And they're married about 6-7 months. And he emails me and said, "Dad, can we go to lunch?" I said, "Yeah." So we go to lunch, and we talk about work and stuff like that. And then he says, he gets to his point, which is, "Dad, this is hard. I didn't think it was going to be this difficult." And so we talked, and one of the things that I talked with him about was that unless the grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains but a single grain. But if it is willing to fall to the ground and die, it will bear a rich fruit. Do you want a rich fruit for your wife and someday your kids or not? So we know, most people know that marriage is difficult, that marriage requires death, but we don't know what the death is. One of the big deaths is that we actually be nice. How difficult is it to be nice when you don't feel like it? How difficult is it to be nice when you don't feel like it?
Really, really hard.
It's hard. And that is the work of the Holy Spirit. Probably the boldest, most optimistic thing that anybody ever does is get married. It really is a bold move. If you want your life to be transformed, if you want to become more like Christ, get married. It'll do it faster than anything else. And I say this to priests all the time. I do. Because when you are married men, Joe, how often do you have someone nearby who's willing to tell you when you're not being like Christ? All the time. 24/7. Priests don't have that. So there's a beautiful little book. It's called The Marriage Crucible, Family Crucible. And the authors, a couple of the first marriage therapists in this country, they said that marriage is like a crucible. A crucible is a container. You put metal in it, and you want to purify the metal. The way you purify the metal is you heat it. And as the heat intensifies, there are imperfections that come to the surface. The goal is to notice the imperfections and to skim off those imperfections. You get a more pure metal. And when you add children to the mix, it gets even hotter. So what was going on 3 years into our marriage is that the heat of my marriage, I had some imperfections that came to the surface. This talk isn't really about those. That would be another talk. But I happened to be married to a woman who wasn't afraid. Maybe she even enjoyed it. pointing out those places in which I was not like Christ. Wow, did it get hot? Okay? If you really do desire to become more Christ-like, there is no faster track than marriage. And if you don't want to become more like Christ, don't ever get married. Please, don't. Okay. So, a big piece of intimacy is being nice to each other. It is so weird that people can go off and they can be nice all day long with pure strangers at work. And then when they get home to the person they married for love, they don't. Isn't it strange that we're more kind for strangers than we are to those we love? And I know most of you aren't married, but you can think about your roommates. How difficult is it to be sweet, kind, loving, courteous with your roommates? Sometimes it's tough. And that is the work of the Holy Spirit to transform us. Another piece of intimacy, a huge piece, is communication. So, this is another one of those terms where there's a lot of confusion. So, communication exists on 4 levels. And you don't really touch on intimacy until you get to the 3rd level. The first level, this is what I like to call the cliche level. How are you doing tonight? Good. Glad to hear it. Do I really care? I actually do. I do. But we all have these little phrases, these little superficial comments. So you say hello to someone. Yeah, how's your day going? And most people understand that that is not the cue for them to say, I've been waiting for somebody to have a couple hours, I'd love to sit and talk with somebody. And what it does, it's really superficial, and it doesn't communicate a whole lot, but it does give people a certain ease with you. So, if anybody remembers the old commercials, one of my favorite all-time Super Bowl commercials, it's called the What's Up? What's up, man? Yo! And these guys are just, anybody remember this one? Do you remember, what was the commercial for? Which is the test of a commercial. If you can remember the product, then you know it works. Which Bud? Bud Light. Bud Light, yeah. So, the thing is, these guys, they don't say anything. All they do is, what's up? And you're in the commercial, and you feel like, man, these guys are tight. That was level 1. No deeper. Level 2. This is when we talk about people, places, and things. Okay? So, you begin to look, what? My wife is great. She understands these things because she's heard me talk about them so many times. And she will listen to conversations and we'll walk away and she'll tell me which level we were at most of the time. Or if the 2 of us are out talking, she knows quickly whether we're at level 2, level 3, or level 4. So, level 2, just watch your conversations. What do you talk about? Do you talk about, oh, you know who I saw today? And you talk about somebody that you have in common. Or, do you remember the vacation we took last summer? The family gets together and you spend the next 45 minutes talking about the vacation and all the things you did. Or, are the Royals going to win tonight?
We hope so.
Or what about the Vikings? So, how long could we talk about sport? A long time. I love sports, by the way. Sports are a great distraction from reality. That's what they're good for. So, you begin to look at how much time you spend with someone talking about people and places and things. And it's not unusual for men to hear from a woman they love something like, honey, we just never communicate. And we're scratching our heads saying, we were just talking for the last hour. What do you mean we never communicate? And what she's saying is, we never get beyond level 2. And again, if you don't get below level 2, if you don't get to level 3, there will be no intimacy. period. So, and you might, what would intimacy look like? What would communication look like with love for God? What's the application? I heard it. Prayer. So, you begin to look at, how do you pray? What's up, God? Or, it can just be all rote, no feeling. And then we can get to the people, places, things, which is, here is my list of things that I want you to take care of, God. This is my laundry list. Level 3. This is when we communicate what it is that we care about, what it is that we believe in, what it is that matters to us, what makes us tick. So I'm hoping that each of you spend some time with the Lord in prayer, communicating with Him about what's really on your heart, what you really care about. My father was I grew up in an alcoholic home, and I had no idea what communication was. We never talked. If you grew up in a dysfunctional home, communication is going to be even more difficult because you've had very little experience with it. If my father and I had not had sports to talk about, I don't think we ever would have talked about anything. I have no idea what he cared about. I don't know what he believed in. I don't know what mattered to him. He died when I was 25, and I still have no idea. So, my wife wasn't interested in having another roommate. She had had lots of those. She wanted someone that was willing to actually open himself up to her. I didn't know what she was talking about. So, before you ever end up in love with somebody, find out whether they're willing to go there. There are a whole bunch of little books. Books of questions. My favorite one of my sons and his fiancée at the time turned me on to this one. It's called If Questions for the Soul. And it's just several hundred questions. Would anybody like to answer a question? I'll just pick one out at random. I did this recently in class, and somebody said yes, and I asked him the question, and he really put his hands out. I'll do it. He blanched. There was no way he was going to answer that in class. So, would anybody like to answer a question?
I will.
Where'd that come from? Ah, the man, he's hiding in the hood. If you were to complete the phrase, I love my life when, how would you finish it? Now notice, there's no way you can answer that without revealing what matters to you. Should I read it again?
Yeah.
Microphone for this? If you were to complete the phrase, I love my life when, how would you finish it? I'm sorry. That was the first one I looked at.
Yeah.
Would you like a different one?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I love my life when I leave a situation or a project and somebody's truly grateful and happy for that I showed up to do the job, or that I took the time out of my schedule to show up.
I don't even know you, but I know you better than I did. Because I know that in your list of top priorities is gratitude. And I'll give you a little hint. Gratitude is one of the keys to love. If you haven't yet developed an attitude of gratitude, you should start. Because what we know is that grateful people will experience a whole host of positive emotions. And ungrateful people are flooded with unpleasant emotions. So, that was a great answer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The for a moment. Imagine we do a little experiment. What I'm going to do, and this has actually been done, okay? So I wasn't planning to go here, but thanks for the introduction. We're going to lop off this section right here. That's a technical, experimental term, lop off. So you are lopped off and you become group 1. So every night for the next month, I would like you to journal for about 10 minutes. And I want you to journal about the things that happened to you that day for which you're grateful. It doesn't work if you just think it. You have to write it. And for married couples, this has also been done. Each night before you go to bed, you write about those things about your spouse that you're grateful. One of the things that's amazing is that when people fall in love, they are so excited. They are so appreciative. They are so grateful that this person is in their life. And as soon as that gratitude begins to slip, so does the love. The thing is also true of God. I was an atheist. And I had a profound experience of Jesus in a truck stop when I was 25. This is another whole story. Not tonight. It's too long a story. And God pierced through all of my defenses at my lowest moment in life. And I've been grateful ever since. So if you've had a closeness to the Lord, if you've seen the ways in which God has touched your life, be grateful. And don't ever let that gratefulness diminish. So, back to the experiment. We have this group. Every night for the next month, you're going to journal. Just things you're grateful for, things you appreciate, people you talk with, things that happen. Only gratitude. This group. You can journal about anything you want. The weather, which you're probably not going to be grateful for. Traffic, work, grass, trees, family, whatever you want. This group, you need to journal every night for the next month about all the ways in which you've been disappointed. All the things that have happened that day that have pissed you off. All the people in your life that let you down. And that's what you're going to journal about every single night for the next month. A month from now, how will your emotional life be? It's going to be much better than it is now. And it doesn't matter where you start. It's going to be better. You will be about the same. You're going to be a mess. Okay? So, and I'm going to bring in a little neurology here. Okay? So, what ends up happening is that those things that we think about just prior to sleep get what's called consolidated into long-term memory. So the neurons begin to fire, and they fire consistently, and the more they fire, the more habitual that becomes. The best time to get our neurons firing with consistent patterns of thought is right before we sleep. That's why you literally become neurologically more grateful. And you become a son. Gratitude is a great predictor of love. So that would be one of the things I'd want to measure, is how grateful you are. And if you score high in gratitude, you'll also score high in love. Okay. What could be deeper than talking about what you care about, what's important to you? The fourth level, and this is when you get to your deepest level of intimacy. This is when you talk about the personal impact of situations, events, circumstances in your life. So, I have lots of examples, but the one that I really do enjoy this one. I have a son who was an All-American in basketball at St. Thomas. And about a year after he graduated, he blew out his knee playing basketball. And he went to the doctor and got checked, and after that, he and I went to lunch. And I talked with him about, who's the doctor? What do you think about the doctor? When's the surgery going to be? What's the rehab going to be like? How long will it take? Where's the surgery going to be at? That, in case you haven't noticed that people places things. And he knew where I was going. He knew. It was talking with Matt earlier, I have this little tendency to probe. So I said, Mark, how are you doing with the fact that you will never be that quick again? And he began to tear up. And as he teared up, I teared up. And we talked for probably 25 minutes about the fact that he was never going to be that quick. He was never going to be that athletic. He was never going to jump. Why would I do this? Why would I want to rip somebody open like that? Because this is intimacy. We cried together a lot. And his identity as an athlete was going to change. I knew it, and he knew it. When someone pulls back the veil and reveals themselves that deeply, you don't ever take it for granted. That is the deepest level of intimacy. When you are with the Lord and you are praying and you pull back that veil and you let him know where you're really at in the depths of your soul, there's no deeper intimacy. And the saints were really good at this. They were excellent. Each fall, my sons and I do a tailgating before a Gophers game. And my sons have two rules for me. One is I can't communicate below level 2. Because they know that that's where I'll go if I get a chance. So I have to just talk about sports and work. Not how they're doing at work, but just work for several hours before and after the game. And the second rule is I'm waiting for the Gophers to get good because they typically play at 11, which means we start tailgating about 6 in the morning. Their other rule is that I have to have a shot for breakfast. So, this year, I had the cardio for breakfast. Right? Okay. So, in the research project that I've been doing, what I've done is take individuals, some married, some engaged, some dating, up to about 700 couples now, and I measure their love for each other. I measure their commitment to each other, their passion for each other, and their intimacy. And then I measure several other variables. Basically, we have this thing called, some of you might have a statistical bent to you, it's analysis of variance. So basically, how many people are in love here? Not with God, but with some human being. Okay, so if we measured your love for each other, which I can do, believe it or not, we can measure how committed people are, how intimate people are, and the amount of passion they have. If we measure that, there's going to be variability. So there's variance. As you go through, we differ in terms of our capacity for love. So what we want to do is we want to break up that variance into its component parts. What explains people's love? So one of the variables is gratitude. If you want to be a good lover, grow in gratitude. Plain and simple. Here's another one. Would you be willing to, this is a tough one, this is called a forced choice test. So you're given two choices and you have to choose one. Personally, I hate forced choice tests because seldom do I like either of the alternatives given. So you're willing to do, oh, sure, she said reluctantly. Okay, so do you agree more with many of the unhappy things in people's lives are partly due to bad luck, or people's misfortunes result from the mistakes they make? Should I read them again? Many of the, and everybody else, you can be answering these as well. Many of the unhappy things in people's lives are partly due to bad luck, or people's misfortunes result from the mistakes they make. I know. That's why it's called a first choice test. The second, okay. So, this is one of my favorites as a teacher. In the case of the well-prepared student, there is rarely, if ever, such a thing as an unfair test. Or, many times exam questions tend to be so unrelated to coursework that studying is really useless. Should I read them again? In the case of the well-prepared student, there is rarely, if ever, such a thing as an unfair test. Or many times exam questions tend to be so unrelated to coursework that studying is really useless. Okay? Becoming a success is a matter of hard work. Luck has little or nothing to do with it. Or getting a good job depends mainly on being in the right place at the right time. Well, which one would you like more? Becoming a success is a matter of hard work. Luck has little or nothing to do with it. Or getting a good job depends mainly on being in the right place at the right time. Hey, good choice. Okay, so these questions come from a scale that's called internal-external locus of control. And the question is, where is the locus of control in my life? If you answer more internal, you're saying, I'm in control of what's, but if somebody's going to get a job, I'm going to get it because I'm going to work hard, I'm going to knock on doors until I get one. As opposed to an external. External locus of control is that what happens to us is largely a matter of luck. You know, you get up in the morning, you roll the die, you hope it doesn't come out snake eyes, but sometimes it does. So, which way did you answer?
The first.
Internal. Nice job. We don't have a single study that suggests that external is more healthy than internal. There isn't a single study out there. If you are more external in your locus of control, by the way, that was only 3 questions out of 29, so we don't really know, but based upon those 3, well, you're a little wishy-washy. No. So, which are better lovers, internal or external? Internal. And I think this is one of the things that saved our marriage. My wife and I are both incredibly internal in our locus of control. There isn't a thing that comes up where I am not going to battle it tooth and nail. One of us is going to go down. It's just, so, and my wife is more than me. We're both very internal. So, when your marriage, when love dries up, some people say, well, you know, what can you do? It was a bad draw. I thought I had the lottery winner, but I didn't. Oh, well. Or somebody else says, we're going to go after this. I asked Joe and Nicole, they were students, they know all this already. How many classes were you in?
A lot.
So I said that I was going to talk about the triangle of love, and that eventually I was going to ask them, which side of the triangle in your marriage needs the most work right now? But I'm not going to ask you to answer that. But for somebody with an you were worried, with an internal locus of control, the person says, okay, passion is the area that's weak. That's the area that needs the work. So what are we going to do in order to invigorate the passion? Commitment. We aren't operating as a team. We aren't a we. What can we do? How can we talk about this so that we can change things and become a we? People with an internal locus of control are much better lovers. It's one of the best predictors of love that I have. This test has been around since 1966. Julian Rotter created it. And we've been testing young adults from 1966 to the present. Sorry, I'm old, so I can say this. Are you becoming, as a group of emerging adults? Sorry. It's a new psycho-speak. We used to call people in their early 20s and mid-20s young adults, but it doesn't really capture how most people are living it in this culture, so we call them emerging adults. So, are we becoming more internal or more external over the years?
External.
How much more external? A lot. 80% of young adults today are more external than the average in the late 60s. That alone can explain for a lot of the marriages that are failing. Okay, how about one more? Because I'm supposed to save a little time for questions and answers. Let me give you one more little measure that predicts love. Let's see. I won't pick anything. Imagine that you are out shopping for a pair of jeans. And the first place you go, you find a pair that looks good, fits good, good price. Would you buy them? Or would you go to another 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 stores just to make sure you got the best? Okay, first, I already know you're a satisficer. It's called satisficing and maximizing. The satisficer is someone that once their criteria are met, they're happy. The maximizer is always hunting for what might be a better deal. So, when you're watching television, there's a perfectly good program on. Do you sit and watch it? Or do you channel surf to find a better one? If you are satisfied with that choice, you're a satisficer. If you constantly channel surf, you're a maximizer. When you are listening to the radio, not a CD, but the radio in the car, and a song comes on, are you fine with it? Or do you flip through searching for the best song? So, which are better lovers? Satisficers or maximizers? Satisficers, yes. And if you want to know which one you are, you can Google it, and the test comes up. And it's worth it. My sons and I do guys' night out, so typically we talk about work and sports for a little while, and then we get to the point which is, what's going on in your life? So, one night we get to talking about maximizing and satisficing, and one of my sons pulled out his iPhone and called up the test, and everybody took the test right there. It was so much fun. Two of my sons, I can't stand to watch television with them because if they have the control, we never stay on the same channel. And I know they're maximizers, so we're in the middle of this thing. They're lying their butts off about what and their other brother called them on it. It was really fun. So, in the research projects that I've been doing, satisficers are better lovers. Those people that are in love, we have this thing called attention to alternatives. It's possible for someone to be in love with one person, but we pay attention to other possibilities. Who tends to have greater attention to alternatives? Maximizers, satisficers? They're still shopping. They're still looking for a better pair of jeans, even though they've got a perfectly good one now. How about attitudes towards divorce? Who has a more positive attitude towards divorce? We could call it a more liberal exchange policy. Maximizers. Who's more apt to cheat? Maximizers. So I have data for all of that. So, growing up in a small town in Iowa, how many stores did we have where you might be able to find jeans? One. You're not going to grow by the way, it does look like maximizing is growing. Growing up, how many television stations did we have? 5, and only 3 of them work most of the time. Now, we have 985 stations. I mean, what's somebody going to do with that? So, at any rate, looking at these types of variables, you cannot have a better relationship. The quality of the relationship cannot be better than the quality of the people making up that relationship. So, I gave you 3 qualities. One is gratitude, one is internal locus control, one is be a satisficer. By the way, if you are a maximizer, how do you become a satisficer?
Learn to be happy with what you have.
What's that?
Learn to be happy with what you have.
When you have the urge to change the channel, you don't. When you have the urge to go out and look for more jeans, You buy the ones that you found, and you don't go into buyer's regret. You accept it and live with it. So, at any rate, Maddie?
Yes.
How do you do questions and answers here? Oh, people raise their hand. Okay. Anybody have a question? It's a special night. Do you have any complaints?
Earlier you said that sloth was the opposite of passion. Passion is a good thing, sloth is a sin. I remember the word passion in Scripture being used as more controversial when it says in Proverbs 15:18, a passionate man stirreth up strife, he that is patient appeaseth those that are stirred up. So they in the Dewey Reams Catholic Action Edition of Scripture, one of the older Bibles, they actually use the word passion that way, and they assign an opposition with patience in that verse. What are your thoughts on that?
Could you repeat the question, or have them hand the mic
Yeah,
off so it gets on the video?
The question has to do with, I'll let you say it. Would you like this? Go for it.
Yes, Proverbs 15:18 in the book Solomon wrote in the Old Testament says that a passionate man stirreth up strife, he that is patient appeaseth those that are stirred up. And so I'm wondering what passion in our modern and more beautiful sense of the word can be. It's kind of like the homonym that's an antonym. The word raise, R-A-Z-E, which means to tear down, and R-A-I-S-E, which means to build up. So I thought that would be worth commenting on because I remember what you said about your story about the athlete. You're a doctor. Are you a doctor, sir?
Not a real doctor.
Oh.
So the issue that Solomon is referring to is not passion, but misdirected passion. So if you think about the passion of Jesus, that's a directed passion. It's directed towards life. So people who are passionless seldom bring life because they don't care enough to bring life. People with passion, that passion can certainly lead them astray. But the person with passion, pointed in the right direction, they are going to make a difference in their life. One of the things that, let's see how to do this. I was talking with a few people earlier back by the back table, and do you have any idea how many needs there are in the church today? Any idea? People with passion will work all day long, and then at night, they want to know how they can serve. On weekends, they want to know, how can I give of my life's blood? Just as Jesus did. The beauty of passion is that when we have a passion for something, we're willing to suffer for it. So, the first thing I ever cared about more than I cared about me was basketball. And I played that dumb game with a passion so that every morning I get up and I have two hips that don't work well, I've got one knee that cracks all over the place, and I've got a bad back. Would I do it differently if I had it to do over? No. Passion, when you have passion, you're willing to suffer for that. So it is clear that some married individuals have a passion for someone other than their spouse, and they end up willing to suffer for that person. That's misdirected passion. But the person who has a passion for God, the person who has a passion for their spouse, is going to be willing to suffer for them. So what we want is well-directed passion. But the passionless person, not much is going to happen.
Can you comment on the difference between settling and satisficing?
Let's see. I'm going to do it. Imagine that there's a guy who has 80% of everything you would want in a husband. If you married him, would you be settling?
I don't think so. Depends what the 20% is. Right.
So, if you found a woman who had 80% of everything you would hope for in a woman, and you decided to marry her, would you be settling?
A lot of my life was just simply spent on exhausting my options. To be quite honest with you, when it came down to it, I was really thankful that a person that I loved and totally screwed up with decided to give me a second chance. So now I'm forever grateful.
Okay. So, when we do this has been done, okay? So we collect these kind of data. When you ask women, the vast majority of women say, if he only has 80% of what I desire, that would be settling. The vast majority of men say, if she's got 80% of what I would desire, I'm a lucky man. So, I wanted to give the question a little context. Seriously, because the way that women look at this, and this idea of settling, is much different than the way that men do it. So, satisficing is the idea that you have certain criteria. And the criteria is not perfection. It's just a set of standards. And once those standards are met, the person is satisfied. They're happy. They would not shop around. They won't look anymore. They're really happily married. Which is different than settling. Settling is, I'm stuck. But the way the women and men look at settling is different, in general. Did that answer that?
I think so, but I don't know if I like it.
Oh, if that was the only thing I said tonight that you don't like, you're in good shape. I often find that people sometimes walk away a little shaken. Because this is tough. This is tough.
In your research, have you done research as far as if someone's at this point as being a good lover, have you seen improvement? Have you done research on can someone become a better lover to their point?
The best way to become a better lover is to become a better person. Honestly. So you want to improve those things that make you more Christ-like. Which, by the way, is another very strong predictor of love. Those people that see marriage as an opportunity for growth as a human being. That what I'm going to do in marriage is actually become a better person. They make really good lovers. As opposed to the contrast with that is the person who has a soulmate view of marriage. Soulmate view is that the key to marriage is not finding someone with whom you can grow, it's finding that person that you're perfectly compatible with. And you'll never have any problems or difficulties, and everything will be great. So, actually, the soulmate view is negatively related to love. People who hold a soulmate view are poorer lovers. How long are you going to go here, Maddie?
This can be the last one.
This is the last one. It better be good. Don't let us down.
So you mentioned those 4 levels of communication. If you can't get to a certain level, the 3rd or 4th level, is that just a matter of time, or does it just mean it's probably a bad choice and I should move on? Or if you do already get to that level, does that just mean they're just a good friend and it's not anything, it's not a bigger indicator?
Okay, so what you want to find out Because a lot of us aren't good communicators, especially men. Sorry, guys. I know. Hey, most of us have, we've spent most of our lives keeping our thoughts to ourselves. We just have. That's the way boys grow up. One of my sons was dating a young woman, and they're driving in the car, and she said to him, "What are you thinking?" And he said, "Nothing." And she said, "That's not possible. You can't be thinking nothing." He said, "No, I wasn't thinking anything." And she said, "No, it's not possible. You have to be thinking something." And he said, "No, really, I wasn't thinking." And she said, "That just isn't physically possible. You have to be thinking something." So he finally said something, and she said, "Well, what led to that thought?" He thought that he was going to get her off his back. So, men especially, we're deficient in communication. And it's not a genetic defect. We don't have any evidence here that we just don't have the genes. It's a matter of experience. Most men haven't grown up with it. So what you want to find out is whether you're willing to work at it. So if you are in a serious relationship, prime the pump. Buy this book. Personally, I think this should be in everybody's library. It is just absolutely delightful. It's just unbelievable. And you want to find out whether someone is willing to... Long-term, communication is the #1 problem in marriages. And we all know it. And the issue is, we don't open up. And therefore, we're not going to have intimacy. And intimacy is key to love. Without intimacy, love dries up. So,
What's the name of the book?
If Questions for the Soul. So, imagine you have a good friend, and you communicate well with her, but there's no spark. So one of my research projects is, if a person had everything you would want in a spouse, but you weren't in love with them, would you marry them? This question was asked in 1976 to college students, and about 75% said yes. 20 years later, asked again, down to about 15% said yes. So I've done this at the University of St. Thomas, and I found that fewer than 10% say yes. What is this thing of being in love with someone so much that it would justify marriage? What is that thing? How do you know? How do you know this? Do you know that 60% of the world's marriages are done through arranged marriages? They are not marriages for love. And of those 60%, how many are actually happy in their marriage? Divorce rate's very low. And close to 60% learn to grow in love with each other. Those 60% are in those cultures where you don't have male dominance. So if you have male dominance in a culture and you have arranged marriages, you're probably not going to have that many happy marriages. One of the big issues with, I'm sorry guys, can I say it? One of the biggest problems in marriage is us. We weren't trained for this, but we can learn. It's called I don't want to go there. So we'll just stop there. So thank you. You're delightful. This was fun. If anybody's really upset with me, I can take it. You wouldn't be the first person even today. So, but thank you. Great group. Really enjoyed being here.
All right, so a big thanks to John Burry for his lovely talk this evening. Also a big shout out and big thanks to our servers, Ryan and Flora. Please be sure to thank them for their service and all their help, since this is quite a large group to manage. So big thanks to them. Also, we want to thank Relevant Radio for helping to promote our series. Check them out on 1330 AM or download their app for iOS or Android. We should be having a donation basket going around here. It's right over here. It should be working its way around. Oh, this one? We have 2 of them apparently. Who knew? So those should be making their way around. So if you feel so inclined, please do generate, just so we can keep these nice events going. So next week for our next topic is going to be Dr. Todd Flanders will flip a common phrase on its head and say, "Thank God it's Tuesday," embracing conversion in an everyday, a Friday world. So then another event that we're going to be having is Sports Night. We'll be indoors on Friday, and that'll be happening at St. John's campus of St. Gabriel's and Hopkins. We do basketball, volleyball, dodgeball, and board games with fellowship to follow afterwards at a local restaurant. There are several other parish partner events, that'll be happening. We should check out the back table for more information on those. And then I believe Matt had a few words to say as well.
Sure. All right, so we are a big group tonight. As you can see, we've filled the room to capacity, past capacity. My name is Matt Mulco. I'm the chair of West Metro Young Adults. And on your tables, you may see some descriptions of other roles and leadership opportunities that we have here. As you can see, this group that we've put together to do things like Theology on Tap, Sports Night, service opportunities, we've gotten pretty big. So we could use all the help we can get. So if you're interested in any of those opportunities, please see me or any of the other leaders here tonight. I'll have the core team raise their hand again so you can see them. We've got Jason, Maddie, Veronica, Maria, and me. So thank you so much for considering that and let us know. We're hoping to have those roles filled this fall, hoping to have our fall elections here next month. So you'll hear more about that next week. And check out our website, westmetroya.com, as Brody likes to refer to it as West Metroya. That's not how you say it, but if it helps you remember it, we'll see you there. It's got all our info about the upcoming speakers, all the events that you might be interested in, as well as getting you connected to the various parish events we have from OLG, Holy Family, or St. Bonaventure. So thank you again, everybody. Have a great night.
Well, Bill, do you want to hear the rest of that story? Oh,